Hello students, welcome to Veranda IAS. From the current affairs of economy, in this session we are going to learn about retrospective taxation. The learning objectives of this particular session will be to outline the retrospective tax, then examine the retrospective tax in news, further analyze India's retrospective tax law of 2012, and then describe capital gains tax. To discuss the provisions of the Taxation Laws Amendment Bill 2021 and so with that, let's introduce ourselves to the concept of retrospective tax. Now this concept evolved basically because of the Vodafone India's case in the Supreme Court. This case was very significant when it came to the corporate laws and corporate taxations in India, and because of that, because the amount that was involved was very significant, and Supreme Court basically ruled in favor of Vodafone, and that was a setback to the government of that time. So in that context, the government initiated a taxation or a law mechanism. They passed a legislation so that they should not face the problem in the times to come. But because of the Vodafone's initiatives, Vodafone's case, what happened is that in other companies in India also suffered from this particular legislation. So let's see what it actually means. So a retrospective tax legislation is one that is effective from a specific date in past but not in future. Now obviously it's a point that you cannot tax something in the future because you are not knowing what will happen, like XYZ company may not even exist in future. But if a company is existing, like let's say it is existing today, that is 31st of any month, so it is existing on 31st, but then future we don't know whether it will exist or not, so taxation we cannot predict about that. But let's say this company was acquired somewhere around, let's first of that month, first did something first of that month. Now the tax by our laws will say that the tax should apply in this way. But over here, this company has acquired some other company on the 1st of December. So the point is the tax will also apply on this day. But this provision was not existing. So retrospectively, when we are saying, it is basically simply the tax that is applied for the past gains. But the past gains were not considered to be the gains in India. It were considered with some legislations, but this was not supposed to be the case with the Supreme Court and its interpretations of the Vodafone case. So simply, if you have to understand what the concept is, it is a very simple concept that is effective from the specific date in the past. So past, if now you have gained that something on 1st, so down 31st you can again charge that you will have to receive the tax from that day. Countries employ these techniques to address any inconsistencies in their tax regulations. Now there can be, and there are various loopholes in the tax mechanisms also. We had a session where we have learned even about the Pandora papers and all those things. So over there also we say there are various ways in which the tax evasion can be done. So to address these loopholes, the countries basically apply this kind of legislation. So this kind of legislation was existing, but it had certain loopholes in India. So because of that, Supreme Court ruled in favor of the Vodafone India that have previously allowed businesses to exploit such loopholes. So that was the concept of retrospective tax. Now what was the news regarding retrospective tax in the news? It was in August 2021, the Union government introduced the Taxation Amendment Bill in the Lok Sabha. This is a significant bill in concern when it comes to the retrospective law. The main objective of the bill is to do away with the contentious retrospective law rule of 2012. So to do away with the retrospective tax law rule and whatever the legislations and the mechanism was initiated by that thing, so to rule out that, the government has introduced this particular bill in the Lok Sabha in the August 2021. So with that, further, now what is the India's retrospective tax law of 2012? So the reference again, it will be coming of Vodafone Group's. Now Vodafone Group's Dutch arm brought a Cayman Island based company in 2007 that possessed an indirect controlling stake in Hutchinson Isar Limited, which was later renamed Vodafone India. So what is it? So basically, overall, in simplest sense, we can say, we will learn the concept also. This is what the capital gain on the part of this company. So what they have done it in 2007. So they have gained certain things and they have got the stakes about that. But then this company was again changed into Vodafone India. So there were technical loopholes as to when the company was initiated, when the company actually started its process, and some indirect controllings and all those things. So on the basis of that, now here Vodafone is saying that we acquired that in Cayman Islands, right? But it is an asset of what? The Vodafone eventually. So that was government's viewpoint. So government wanted to tax the Vodafone. Fine. they have achieved this thing, indirect controlling stakes in Hutchinson Hisar, which later became. So you have to charge the Vodafone. That is what their perspective was. But then Vodafone filed the case, so that was again some significant change. The Finance Act was amended to allow the tax department to apply retrospective capital gains. This is a capital gain. So Vodafone Group may later become the Vodafone India, but it has already acquired that thing. That is what this Cayman Island company based or Hutchinson Hisar, whatever it can be, it's just for reference that this is just a significant example of the retrospective tax laws. So Finance Act was amended to allow the tax department to apply retrospective capital tax on transactions involving the transfer of shares. So here it is, we can see indirect control stake in Hutchinson. So it was giving transfer of shares. So in foreign firms based in India that occurred after 1962. So there was a provision. So on the basis of that provision, government initiated or demanded the tax from them. So further, what happened? The company took the matter to Supreme Court. Now this was very significant case. The court ruled in favor of Vodafone, saying that it could not be taxed retrospectively, and this was simply because of the loopholes of the laws and legislations that we had in our system. So Vodafone was able to get rid of, that was a huge amount, it was in thousands of crores. So that amount basically was evaded by the Vodafone, and Supreme Court even favored that. Again, simply it was the loopholes in our taxation system. The retrospective tax law was passed in 2012 following the court's verdict in favor of Vodafone. So that was the, what you can say, the base of the retrospective law in India. Further, retrospective amendments taxes to the Indian income tax system. Now we will see this concept. Now, as we said, it started with Vodafone. While the amendment was intended to punish Vodafone, it also caught many other corporations off guard, causing a slew of issues for India over the years. So the amendment was what? Charging the Vodafone, but now there were certain Indian corporations also, and they also suffered because of this. So there was a tussle continuous between the government and the corporations over the retrospective taxing mechanism. India lost a challenge last year in International Arbitration Tribunal in The Hague against Crane Energy Private Limited and Crane UK Holdings Limited on claimed capital gains. So this again, here comes the concept of capital gain. Claimed capital gains generated when the firm reorganized its operation in the country in 2006 before listing the local subsidiary. From exam point of view, you don't need any of the point except the knowing fact that it lost a challenge last year. So again, that brings into the concern that we need to amend, or we need to bring out certain changes, a significant amount of changes in our income tax regime. Further, now what is a capital gain? This is the most important point when it comes to the exam. And in UPSC prelims or in the mains, it can be a direct question. Specifically in the prelims, a capital gain is any profit or gain derived from the sale of a capital asset. So what are the capital assets? It can be the complete company itself. So if you are selling a complete company to some other person, that is also your capital gain. Or if you are sharing certain amount of shares of that company, and from that shares, if you have earned certain amount of money, that is also a capital gain. Or even at the simplest level, we can say at an individual level, if you are selling your flat or your house, that is also a part of a capital gain. So simply, capital gain is any profit derived from the sale of capital assets. So whatever the capital assets are there, and just remember, shares are included into the capital gain. Selling of shares, it may be for individual, like if you possess certain shares with you, and if you are selling that and if you are earning the profit on that, then you have to give a tax which is called as a capital gain. So this gain or profit falls under the category of income. That is why we have to pay for it. So it may be when you file the income tax returns and all those things, there will be a provision for this also, right? And as a result, a tax must be paid on it in the year in which the capital asset was transferred. So I hope if you understand the capital gain, so you will understand the capital gain which Vodafone India did by purchasing the Hutchinson Hisar. And that's why these loopholes, people were not agreeing, the corporations were not agreeing that this is an income. And if I have done it in past, and now you are bringing the law, so why should I be paying that? So that is basically the issue. But simple thing, again understand, it comes under the income. So it is a part of an income tax. So you have to pay that income tax. So that is the capital gain. So it's a very simple concept, but important from the prelims point of view. Further, what is the proposed amendment? let's see that this is again very important from the exam point of view. The Taxation Laws Amendment Bill repeals the applicable retroactive tax provisions that were enacted in 2012. So simply it just repeals. So it is an amendment that has been brought to repeal the tax provisions. Any tax demand made on transactions that occurred before May 2012 will be dismissed as a result of the reforms. So any tax claim before 2012, whichever the government has initiated or tax department has initiated, that will not be considered and that will be dismissed. Any taxes that have already been collected will be refunded, but without interest. So if you have collected the taxes, then you will get the refund, but at the same time, they will not pay the interest on that. So that's the proposed amendment. So remember this. Then further, in order to be eligible, the concerned taxpayers would have to abandon all outstanding complaints against the government. So it is like form of an arbitration. Like there are issues between government, corporations, or the individuals. Now scope over here is what? We will give away your refunds. We will provide you whatever we have done, but we will not pay the interest. At the same time, you also have to withdraw the complaints against us, and that may be in India or that may be in international courts. So that is the government stand. Further, they should also undertake not to pursue any damages or expenses claim. Now this is again, as I told you, arbitration is the method in the legal system where actually both the parties come together, they decide. So in a way, this legislation is kind of an arbitration where both sides have to give away something. Like for this, they have to give away their interest, and for here, they also don't have to claim. Now further, if all is done, then they can again claim that if you have done something wrong, then you have to pay for our expenses for the courts and all those things. So you cannot do that. So these are the amendments that have been brought into in the taxation system, particularly the Taxation Laws Amendment Bill of 2020. So to summarize what we have learned retrospective tax in news, India's retrospective tax law of 2012. Then we studied a very important concept from the prelims point of view, that is capital gains, simple but important. Provisions of Taxation Laws Amendment Bill 2021. So with that, I hope you have understood whatever we have discussed in this particular session. That's it for this session. See you in another one. Thank you.